Oh my god, Lego, why are you making this video, man? You already talked about Slafkovsky and the first overall pick. You're just trying to clickbait us and get more money. I'm making this video because there was a recently published article on The Athletic by Basu and Godin from June 6, 2022 that, oh man, I know the protocol is to don't screenshot The Athletic material because, you know, it's paid for content and I don't want to do that thing where I'm sharing exclusive journalism on a public platform because that's what a YouTube channel is. But get yourself an Athletic subscription and read this article. Because what Arpon Basu and Marc-Antoine Godin do in this piece is they talk about the first overall pick. This is the collection of Canadiens information that was floating around at the NHL Combine. Here's what we have heard. Long story short, if there was any doubt in your mind, any doubt, just even a very small seed of doubt that existed within your head that said, hey, maybe Shane Wright just is not the guy. What this article does is it takes that seed of doubt, it puts it right in front of a solar panel reflecting all these sunlight rays onto it, and then it takes a bucket of water, pours it onto the seed, and it says, hey, grow, here, some steroids that we can inject into you, so this seed of doubt will blossom into a very big tree of doubt. Because this article, oh man, I know it's supposed to be the Shane Wright draft, but it really goes out there and it hammers down the idea that Slafkovsky might be the guy. This is the only quote that I feel comfortable sharing on the video because it's actually a quote posted onto the Habs subreddit. It's a quote from the article linking to the piece. Arpon Basu says, "We don't know what the decision will ultimately be. All we're saying is, it wouldn't be very surprising if it wound up being Slafkovsky." You're gonna have to take my word for me on this, but there are other parts of the article where they discuss that Slafkovsky has been really good at the World Championships and how that really boosted his stock because he produced a whole bunch of shots and scoring attempts against NHL talent, which is good in itself for sure, but you could definitely say that there's an argument to be made that players like Cooley and Wright just did not get that opportunity, and if they did, they might have actually had that same level of success, maybe even a bit more. But I digress. Slafkovsky was a good player at that tournament, and as we have highlighted over the past few weeks, he is a very intriguing prospect. He's big, he's skilled, he's fun to watch, and as a result, this is a player that at his ceiling could be a very interesting pickup depending on how he develops. His ceiling is so high, but I don't really want to say that his ceiling is the most attainable. I think it's a lot more likely that Shane Wright fulfills his maximum potential ceiling than it is that Logan Cooley does that or that Slafkovsky does that especially. Even though Slafkovsky might be the player with the highest ceiling out of all these guys, he is the one with the least likely amount of hope to hit it, in my opinion. But it doesn't discredit the idea that he could just be a very good player in his own right without hitting his ceiling because, come on, a 6'4" skilled guy that can score and control the puck on the boards and carry it along his stick, he's a pretty talented guy. And if you really wanted to say that Slafkovsky could be that unicorn, you talk about the idea of him moving to center, which is something that apparently the Devils and the Canucks actually did, which we have talked about in a video already, so go ahead and check that one out. But the verdict on Slafkovsky has always been the same in my opinion. This guy has a high ceiling. If you move him to center, you could say his ceiling grows even more. But for the Montreal Canadiens, this is a team that, with their need of centers, it feels kind of like the right choice to pick Wright, does it not? At the very least, Logan Cooley, since they're both natural centers who have played in this position for the past few years, pretty much their whole lives playing hockey, right? Slafkovsky is a guy that has not played center in a very long time. He says he would be able to do it according to the interviews we saw with the Devils and the Canucks, but he just is not that guy. Sure, he might be a very good winger by the time he hits his prime in the NHL, but still, the primes of Wright and the primes of Cooley, I believe, are a little bit more valuable to what the Canadiens could use. However, this article goes out there and it says the contrary, that yes, there is a decision to be made, it's not a guaranteed decision, Slafkovsky might be the guy, and if he is, you should not be surprised. Let's go over onto a few comments that were made on Twitter not on Twitter, but like comments from Slafkovsky himself, going over the Canadiens and what it would be like to be a part of this franchise. He said this: playing with Caulfield and Suzuki would be the perfect fit in my mind. They're two relatively small players, so I'd make sure to give them space and take care of completing their games. Yes, I've already thought about all of that. Now, okay, Shane Wright aside, I do like the idea of Slafkovsky playing on a line with Caulfield and Suzuki. It does kind of feel like a match made in heaven to me, because you have the playmaker in Suzuki, the sniper in Caulfield, and the all-round overall player in Slafkovsky. I like the sound of that, but man, I really do like the sound of having Suzuki as a number 2 center, or Shane Wright or Logan Cooley in their primes as a number 2 center as well. And frankly, as I've said, I think their ceilings are a lot more attainable than Slafkovsky's is. Here's a comment that was made by Matthias Brunet on the Twitters, on 91.9 Sports, talking about Slafkovsky and the Canadiens as well. Matthias likes Slafkovsky at number 1. He also thinks the Habs like him at 1 as well. You have yourselves Grant McKegg, who said this on Twitter. It's a pretty good tweet that I think goes out there and spreads a positive message, which I think a lot of us could probably use more of nowadays. Whoever the Habs pick first overall, I will support. It's not an us versus them scenario for me. If it's Slafkovsky, great. If it's Cooley, great. If it's Wright, great. I have a definite preference for Slafkovsky, but all three will be fine NHL players in different ways. I didn't loathe Nolan Patrick when I put Hischier and Heiskanen ahead of him, when he was still expected by many to go first, but I got the same blowback as I'm getting with Wright. People take it personally, and they shouldn't. This is referring to the Twitter thread that he made a few weeks ago, where McCagg, a former NHL scout, went out there and said that, hey, Shane Wright is not all that great. And we made the video talking about how Wright might not be the first overall pick by the Canadiens, and that video had like 20,000 views. So, I mean, now that there's another article on The Athletic going over this same idea, but instead of just saying, hey, Wright might not be 1, it's, hey, Wright might not be 1, and Slafkovsky could be 1 instead. The Logan Cooley thing doesn't even exist anymore. Nobody talks about Logan Cooley because he's just completely in the back of everybody's minds. It's kind of funny because there was the sentiment going around from NHL scouting websites, and I believe Craig Button, something like that, I completely forgot, but somebody went out there and said that when it came to the first overall pick, Logan Cooley, a few months ago, was the guy who would go out there and challenge Wright the most. That was, I believe, before the Olympic Games. That was, I believe, before the World Championships. That was before Slafkovsky went out there on the international stage at varied levels and had the showcase of talent that he did, where he was scoring points, making plays, going up against NHL caliber defense cores in the Team Canada game he had at the World Championships against guys like Chabot and a few other players whose names you might be familiar with, and he actually showed off pretty well. It's things like that with the recency bias that really puts this guy in the spotlight for the media attention, and a lot of media members are biting on it. If I had to place money on it, which I won't because I don't really like doing the betting, if I had to place money on it, I would say the Canadiens would select Shane Wright. It just does not feel comforting to me thinking about them going any other way. This was always the right draft. The Canadiens were the worst team. Everybody was saying they needed a center. Another one at that. Ryan Poehling's just not going to cut it. Sorry, Jake Evans. But Shane Wright? He's already there. You just have to pick up the phone, confirm the pick, and make things simple. If you go with Slafkovsky at number 1, I can understand why you would do that. There are reasons that I've explained that say that Slafkovsky has a higher ceiling, therefore he should be the higher pick, but you're gonna have to go through so many hurdles and roadblocks to explain to the media and calm the fan base down on why the Habs would not have selected Wright instead. I know that we just read that Grant McCagg thread where he was like, yeah, whoever they pick, I'm going to be okay with. And for me, personally, I would probably be okay with all 3 picks as well. Slafkovsky, Cooley, Wright. It's just, Wright was really good, and he had a cerebral style of game that I think will benefit him so greatly at the NHL level, and he happens to be a center. That's what the Habs need. If you want to change Slafkovsky into a center, then okay. If you want to keep him on the wing, then okay. But like, there's a guy right there. It's the easy pick. Man, if the Canadiens don't end up drafting Wright after I've made all these videos talking about him, then I'll eat my hat, I guess. Okay, no, I don't want to do that, because if there's a realistic possibility that Slafkovsky actually is the guy, then hey, I don't want to go out there and eat my hat, but you get what I'm saying. Tell me in the comments all your thoughts about this article. If you have The Athletic, go ahead and read it because, man, it is a mind-blowing article. Not because of the content, but just in terms of how it's saying that the Canadiens might actually think about Slafkovsky at 1. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.